Hi, everyone. Welcome to our interview series with creative writers who help other creative writers. I'm your co-host, Beth Barany, and with me here is Gala Russ. And I'm going to introduce myself, and then Gala will introduce herself, and then we're going to introduce our guest. I'm Beth Barany. As I said, I'm an award-winning science fiction and fantasy novelist of the Henrietta the Dragonslayer series, as well as the Janie McAllister Space Station Mystery series. I'm also a book coach and writing teacher and help science fiction and fantasy authors. And now I also help creative writers who want to build profitable and sustainable businesses to serve other creatives so they can share their expertise with confidence while making a living doing what they love. And Gala, I just want to say welcome to Bailey. We're going to bring you in a moment. So Gala, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Beth. Hi, I'm Gala Russ, and after struggling for several years through figuring out how to write books and then how to publish books and market books, my own books, I write under Willa Drew as my pen name. I now help writers avoid as much of that confusion as possible because there's a lot of other stuff that they need to focus on. So my mission is to show writers the clearest and most custom to them way to publishing their book, because we're all different. So that's my goal for helping writers.
And you also you and I are going to be co-teaching an entrepreneurship training program. And that's one of the impetus for this series, because we're really both passionate about helping other creative writers who want to serve others as a book coach or an editor or as a ghostwriter also, like what Bailey does. So Bailey, can you introduce yourself and then we'll get to our questions.
Awesome. Yeah, Beth and Gal, I'm really excited to chat with both of you today. So thank you for inviting me onto this series. So I am Dr. Bailey Lang. My business is called The Writing Desk. I am a book coach, editor, and ghostwriter. And so I work one-on-one with authors to build sustainable, enjoyable writing practices that help them take their books from draft to done. So I really focus on working with writers who are kind of struggling to fit their practice in around. Often I'm working with people who own businesses or people who are trying to write a book, not as their full-time job. So fitting in the writing around the rest of their lives and finding ways to make that feel both like something that they can maintain and something that they enjoy, which is something I think we overlook occasionally.
Yeah, for sure. So Gala, you're going to take our first question for Bailey today.
I can. Oh, Bailey, the very first question we have for you is, what inspired you to start helping writers? How did that happen? Tell us like the very beginning of it.
Oh, boy, I mean, the very, very beginning. So I first learned that editing books was a job when I was in middle school. I think I was about in 5th grade when I figured that out. And I was like, that's a thing that you can do for a living? And so that has always kind of been my North Star. I love working with other writers, working with other people's writing. Something that comes very naturally to me is like taking a piece of writing and seeing the possibilities for where it could go next and really helping writers build that bridge to like from where they are in their draft now to kind of that next level. So that has always kind of been the backbone of everything that I do. And then I went on to get a bunch of degrees in writing. So I have a PhD in rhetoric and writing studies. And through that process, I realized that I absolutely loved working one-on-one with writers. I love teaching as well. Like I do some group teaching or in workshops. And that is so much fun. But really getting into a draft in a very deep way, one-on-one with a writer, is just like the most fun that I could possibly have. For work. And I didn't feel like I could do that work in academia. So I finished my PhD and I set off and I took what I had learned in that program and in my time as a writer. So I've written and published a book, my love of editing, and I built The Writing Desk. And so at this point, I have been running this business for about 4 years. And it's been kind of an iterative process of just kind of figuring out what is it that I can offer to writers and what is it that they need to really like fall in love with their writing process. So that's kind of always been the journey for me.
That's a wonderful cross section that you just said of like, what can you offer and what do they need? It's a lovely little overlapping circles, right? With our Venn diagram in the center. of what it is that people can do. That's so great. And I feel like I've done a similar journey of like, my passion was like, oh, I want to help writers. I'm like, oh, hey guys, what do you need?
Yes.
I started out, it was like, what questions do you have? Oh, that's so great. And now that you are working with writers, what kind of frameworks or tools or processes help you guide your clients effectively?
Yeah, so I focus on a few things. There are the habits of mind that are really important, and I'll talk about what those are. Then we focus on kind of the writing practice, and we focus on craft. So habits of mind, Beth, you and I talk about these a lot. Habits of mind are what I wrote my dissertation about. So these are the mental patterns that we adopt when we're thinking about and approaching our writing creativity. So these are things like creativity, curiosity, engagement, persistence, all of these kind of foundational building blocks of having a successful writing practice that we often neglect, right? We tend to think, well, the writing practice is the external stuff that I do, and the thinking is just me coming up with whatever it is I'm writing about. But there are all of these other mental habits that can inform your writing practice and kind of turbocharge it if you sort of figure out how to cultivate those effectively. So that's something that I'm bringing more and more explicitly into how I work with clients and kind of talking to people about, like, how are you practicing persistence with your writing, right? Like, if you're feeling stuck on something, how do you keep going? How are you going to get over, this roadblock that is coming up? Then we focus on building a practice, right? How do you actually get your best writing done? And how can we make that sustainable and enjoyable and fun? Writing is something that I think any writing habit or practice is so individual because nobody has an identical life to somebody else, right? So I can't hand someone a writing practice and just say, well, do this, right? This is what Stephen King says to do, so it'll work for you. That's just not how it works. So we get really, really customized with the writing practice portion. And then as a developmental editor and an editor, I really focus on craft. So what's working in the writing? Are we seeing the genre conventions show up? Or if we're trying to subvert those, is that being done skillfully and legibly? What might need some additional development or tweaking? So I really love working with writers who show up and they're like, hey, I have a draft. Like, I've written this whole book. Now what? Like, I feel like a lot of people kind of panic at that stage. And a developmental edit is a really, really good next step because you get all of that juicy structural feedback that will really elevate the manuscript to that next level. So those are kind of the three main areas that I focus on when working with people. And it's so much fun.
I can totally tell. Yeah. And the habits of mind, just a tiny little seed planting. Bailey will be offering a habits of mind webinar through my school. So stay tuned.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love that so much. The inner work of being a writer and the internal way we approach our work is, to me, like half of it. Or, I mean, you could say you set it up like it's a third, but to me, it's also like everything. It's foundational. Have that inner landscape that can understand what is it, how do I deal with persistence? Fall down, get up, fall down, get up. I always tell people I fall down 9 times, get up 10, like, yeah. So I obviously have a lot to say about that too, as a creativity coach, but we'll pause on that and leave it for another time because I want Gala to chime in and see if you have something to add or if you're ready to go to our third question.
When you were talking about the first part, I 100% agree with everything you said, but I think that is also something that can be applicable to what we're talking about, to being a creative entrepreneur, right?
Yes, for sure.
The same kind of skill set that you need to learn, and you are going to fail, and there are going to be some offers that you put out that people are not interested in or that do not work out the way you want.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing about a lot of us, in my experience, are writers, and we're writers first. And when you start doing the entrepreneurial work, when you're talking about like figuring out what your practice is, now you have to figure out what your practices are and how to put them together where one doesn't overtake the other. I don't know if you have any advice on that, because you are both a writer. And I think that kind of also segues us a little bit into the third question that we have for you, which is how do you protect your own creative energy while supporting other people's writing goals? But also, how do you still continue be a writer? Because I feel like it's also not a fear that creative entrepreneurs or potential creative entrepreneurs have. Is like, well, I want to do it, but I also want to still be a writer. That's still very important to me. So all of those questions.
Just small ones, little things. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is really, really easy. I think especially when you're just starting out to let the business that you're building kind of take over your life, right? It can feel very scary. It can feel very intimidating. And in general, I think our creative practices, if that's not like our main source of income, that is something that can be really easy to deprioritize because it doesn't always feel essential, even though it is, right? It is essential to our souls. It might not feel essential to our bottom line, but dropping that will affect the bottom line eventually. It's just going to be in ways that you might not expect. So yeah, maintaining your own creative practices, protecting your own creative energy, it's really, really important. And so I have a few things that I've kind of worked out over the years, and this is like always ongoing. But something that's been really important for me is firm boundaries, right? I definitely have some workaholic tendencies, and I have been in burnout before. That was me at the end of my PhD. I was fried to an absolute crisp. And so I really had to learn and build working habits that are sustainable, right? Sustainability is a huge theme for me throughout everything. So work stays at work. I take on a fairly limited number of clients and projects each year because I know, as much as I would love to take on every project that comes across my desk, I can't be of service to the writers that I want to help if I am so burned out and fried that I don't have anything left to give them. So not only is it about protecting my creative energy, it's about helping my clients as well. So, and then outside of work, in my own creative practice, I have two kind of big things that have worked really well for me. So one of them is following my curiosity. I want to know everything. Like I want to know all this stuff. So I follow that. I'm always trying to learn new things. I'm always kind of seeing what feels interesting, what feels neat and worth pursuing, and I just go with that. So this year in particular, I have been learning how to draw. So I've been signing up for a lot of classes and, just kind of finding these new outlets for creative expression. And the more I do that, the more I follow that curiosity and pursue those activities, the more creative energy I have, right? That it kind of feeds itself. And the other thing that's been really important for me is learning to align with my natural cycles, right? I firmly believe there is no flow without ebb, right? There are going to be periods where I am not producing enormous amounts of creative work. And so treating those times as fallow periods rather than a crisis has become really, really important for me. That's a time when I know that I need to do stuff that will refill my cup and not try to force myself back into a productive mode. So the more I can be aligned with that, be really mindful about what is going on with my creative energy. Am I in a place where I just want to go and make projects? Or am I in a space where I need to slow down a little bit, right? Like maybe I need to go to some museums, just go hang out at the library for a while, do those things that fill that back up so that then I will return to that productive cycle, right? Plants don't produce fruit all the time. And creatives are not going to be productive every second of our lives, right? We have to have those rest periods. So that's been really, really important for me to kind of tap into that and really listen to what signals my body and my creativity are sending me.
I love that. Again, I love everything you said. Like we're going to definitely make some clips, and those are going to be some good clips right there.
Awesome.
I'm loving that. Yeah, I'm so, like you're talking about drawing. Last year I did the whole year of creativity where for the entire year I was taking different classes that were interesting to me, that had no pursuit and no purpose and no productivity associated with them. Like I did improv, I did songwriting classes, I did playwriting classes, just to kind of be around other creative minds.
Mm-hmm.
That fills the well. And this year I want to do either watercolor or drawing. I haven't decided. I need to make that decision. But also the filling it of the well, that resonates with me so hard because you can't keep producing and producing. You have to have time to fill in the will. And sometimes it's as you do other things. Sometimes it's like periods. And I think different people work in different ways, and you have to decide what works for you. There's no universal rule
Yes.
for
Yeah.
how your body does. And sometimes I also think people say, oh, you need to have a balance where you perfectly spend this amount of time on this amount of time on this amount of time on that, and
It's super
makes.
stressful.
And like, I'm so anti that. And again, maybe for some people it works, but for me, it's the ebb and flow, as you mentioned, because there are some periods where you're like, writing is like taking most of the time and you're maintaining your business part. And then you need some creative time off and you can focus more on your business. I'm like, again, I'm just repeating everything that you said. And you said, I'm gonna give this back to Beth because I have nothing to add.
I feel we could talk about it all day, though. It was like my favorite stuff to talk about.
Likewise. And I source myself on a daily basis by actually listening to French radio live. And something the channel focuses on is creative. They talk about other creative things all the time. They're interviewing artists or filmmakers or singers, rappers, whatever. And then also they talk about the social issues. French love to talk about their social issues because it's a socialist country, and they love to talk. And I find so much inspiration in that, and I get to exercise my French skills, and I get to transport myself instantly to someplace else. And it's passive in that I'm listening. And so it's kind of like, oh, phew, I don't have to be producing. I can bring it in. And a new idea came to me last night, which is geometry. I loved geometry. My husband's a high school physics teacher. Today is the first day back at the school year. And he was talking about, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And we were talking about triangles and angles. And I was like, I love geometry. I want a workbook. I want a workbook like you might have when you're in high school and you've missed some classes. And I'm like, where can I get me a geometry workbook?
That's so fun.
I'm doing puzzles. I'm doing match 3 games all the time, and which also allows my brain to kind of take a break, but also do these instant puzzles that have no words and just pattern recognition, which our brains are fabulous at.
Good at. Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, can I get back into geometry? So I'm actually gonna today, when we're done with our interviews, I'm gonna go down to the shop that has a lot of things for kids and see if they have something.
That's awesome.
Just because it's happy. And I used to do Sudoku, and I love puzzles. Also, maybe why I'm a mystery writer as well, sci-fi mystery writer. Yeah, so fun, Bailey. This has been so great. I love that your work is so clear and also personalized and customized. And I think it's a great thing for people who are thinking making their business. Is like you can be totally yourself, bring your skills, and something that you exhibit through the way you communicate is also experimentation. I feel like you're like, oh, I'm going to listen to my body, right? Like, but we don't know what we want from moment to moment. So we have to really be open, and we have to be willing to kind of go again with this watchword we have today here with you is flow. There's the ebb and the flow, and to really pay attention to that. And I love how you are a stand for that. You're like, this is how I want to live my life. And so thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes, this was so much fun. Thank you for inviting me on. It was great to talk with you both.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Such a good talk.
Thanks.